So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my faculty development program and teaching quantitative reasoning and quantitative literacy and how we approach this at Newman College, which I told you a little about at the panel yesterday. I know we're starting a little late, so hopefully we won't run too much over. I know people are probably getting eager to get to lunch, but I did want to share some information about my faculty development program and also do a little exercise. So I've talked to some of you one-on-one a little bit, but I told you basically beginning in around 2010, I started a faculty development program at Lehman, which focused on training faculty in best practices in quantitative reasoning. In 2012, we got funding from the National Science Foundation to develop an online program to kind of do the similar thing and focus on training faculty across the City University of New York. That program was called the Numeracy and Fusion Course for Higher Education. And more recently, we got funding to focus on the schools in the Bronx, and that program is called the Numeracy and Fusion for College Educator Program for college educators. So when you hear me refer to niche or to refer to NICE, I'm talking about these two programs. The first one called the acronym niche, the second one the acronym NICE. Okay, so just set that in context here. And the clicker. JP, is the clicker not on, or it's working? Worst comes here, I can just. Yeah, I think it's just battery dead. It's okay. I can just use the arrows. Yeah, I noticed too.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so I wanted to just start by talking a little bit about what we mean by quantitative reasoning, give you some definition, provide kind of a generalized overview of our program, and then talk about some of the strategies that we've been advocating, and then just do a little exercise to show you about some of the techniques we use in our faculty development program. And some of you, I was actually just showing some components of it. It's based in Blackboard. I'm very happy to share the material, make you a guest observer if you're interested. I have some people who have indicated that. So I'm very happy to share the resources and materials from the program. So to begin with, I just want to give you a sense of some examples of quantitative reasoning and share with you one of the things we do in our faculty development program. It really is like a course. It's like a course for faculty, so it's pretty intense. It's 8 units. Each unit takes faculty probably about 5 to 7 hours on average to complete. So it's pretty intense. Since we've got this support from NSF, we've been paying faculty to participate in our program. One of the things we have them do is that we have them read Jeffrey Bennett's book, Math for Life, which I talked a little bit about yesterday. We always have a book. We've had actually one year we used the book, John Paulos's book, Numeracy, which is also a really excellent book to kind of have an introduction to quantitative reasoning and quantitative literacy. Since it's open to faculty across the curriculum, I think these are good books, which are generalized books about numeracy. This is how Jeffrey Bennett starts his book. He says, don't be bad at math. His first chapter, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Can I just try Control Plus here? Will that work? I guess I can. It's going to cut off some of it, but I'll read it to you here. Although, but anyways, he says, this is how he starts the book. He says, let's start with a multiple choice question. Imagine you're at a party and you've struck up a conversation with a dynamic, successful businesswoman. Which of the following are you most likely to hear her say during the course of the conversation? And of course, these are the answers. I don't really know how to read well. I can't write a grammatically correct sentence. I'm awful at dealing with people. I've never been able to think logically, or I'm bad at math. And the answer is, he says, is E, I'm bad at math. Somehow we've created this society where it's acceptable to say I'm bad at math, and he spends the rest of that chapter saying how this is really unacceptable, that we've created this situation where it is socially normative to say I'm bad at math, and that in other countries, he talked about other countries such as Singapore and stuff where this would never be allowed, and that he says it's a social disease that we need to address. And I think it's a really powerful statement that we have to, and Jill talked about she never lets her students say that, and he takes the same approach, that we have to address this. And he talked about how it really focuses on minorities and women, that this disease is more of, those are people who have been especially victimized by this insidious disease. So in terms of thinking about quantitative reasoning, I just wanted to put forward some examples of what I think of when I think about quantitative reasoning, because I see this as something that's just so important for our students in terms of, just navigating the social world. And what I've done is just put some examples here of, I'm not sure why this is showing up here, but there we go here. These are just some commercials or advertisements that I found that kind of illustrate some of the challenges society as a whole faces with regard to quantitative literacy. If you look at some of these, okay, this first one here is just a bottle of Dr. Pepper, and you see how it advertises 10-fold tasting calories per 8 fluid ounces. Okay, and then you see this is 20 fluid ounces, and it says 20 calories per bottle, which is kind of interesting because it's 10 calories per 8 fluid ounces, and somehow they get 20 calories in 20 fluid ounces. So these are kind of things, having my students understand that this is a problem, there's something that's not making sense here, is a skill I want my students to understand. Similarly, with this advertisement here, it says 20% off, save $5, was $7.50, save $2.50. Okay, so now it's $5. Okay, was $7.50, save $2.50. Now it's $5 and it's 20% off. And obviously that if you go from $7.50 to $5, you're not saving 20%. Okay, so I'm also frozen again, JP. So I'm just going to click to here. Or I don't know if I'm clicking to anything because now it's frozen on me.
Click there once and then
now we're back. Thank you. Okay. So here, is another example, some other examples from the news, actually. I've tried to be an equal opportunity kind of pointer out of problems, because here I have Fox News, of course, are conservative, and here I have CNN, I guess, which is kind of middle of the road, actually. And here, if you look at this, polls in Fox News, they say, do scientists falsely research to support their own theories on global warming? Yeah, 59% somewhat likely, 35% very likely, 26% not very likely. Yikes, okay. And then here we have on CNN, so I know yesterday Jill mentioned some of our students don't really understand, well, percentages have to add up to what the good, but actually it may seem so funny and so comical, but a lot of my students actually, I'd say a significant number just don't get that these are obvious problems. And just having my students interpret percentages, like per 100, having them understand that's a challenge, okay? These are some other examples here. This is an advertisement for United Airlines where they say we're going places more than 372 fast. Okay. And here's another 1/3 of our operating budget goes towards financial aid. And they have 20 million out of 80 million. And they even have the pie chart, which, more than 1/3. But anyways, part of also what we're teaching with quantitative reasoning, we have a whole unit in our faculty development program about quantitative literacy and writing, because we've talked about one of the things we want them to do is not just to go through the calculations, but actually to be able to interpret what they found and to be able to accurately write about numbers. So we want them to they're not to be making mistakes, because wording is very important. And I do a lot of this scaffolding with writing about percentages, how to write about, this means per 100 when you see a percent, or what are the rates. Be very specific about how to interpret these numbers, or percentage change over time. It's something that really presents a challenge to my students when they go over percentage. Another thing is just with estimation, having students understand estimation. This is a question on how tall is the Empire State Building. Anyone want to estimate how tall the Empire State Building is? Who hasn't seen my slide before? Anyone want to guess here? There aren't too many New Yorkers here. Do you want to estimate?
No idea. Yeah, I was going to say 1,000 meters.
How about in feet? Because I have it in feet here. Actually, maybe I do have it in meters too, but I have it in feet. Okay, so that's not too off, but it is significantly larger. Okay, the correct answer is 1,472. The television antenna 1,472. Okay. Now, what happened was Douglas Hofstadter, who is a cognitive scientist, was teaching at Hunter College, which is right in New York City, where the students could actually see the Empire State Building from the window where he was teaching. And he said, this was a while back, but their estimates range from 50 feet to a mile, and most were about 300 to 500 feet. And none of them came within a multiple of 2, to what the actual amount was. So they were not half or twice as much. They were all, pretty far off. And in his book, where he was writing about, quantitative literacy and some of the challenges we as a society face, he says it is fashionable for people to decry the appalling illiteracy of this generation, particularly its supposed inability to write grammatical English, but what of the appalling innumeracy of most people, old and young, when it comes to making sense of numbers? So kind of making this call, this is back in 1982, about, we face a serious problem. And these calls are getting repeated, I think, more and more today. People are becoming more and more aware of this. This is an example that I use in my death and dying class, because I told you I teach about percentages and rates and everything, and pie charts, and have to make charts. And one of the things I do in my class is I always do a pre-test just to see if they can understand how to interpret a pie chart. This is a pie chart on the distribution of cremations in North America by race and ethnicity. And you see overwhelmingly, well, basically you can see the pie chart is just the distribution of cremations, and then I have them interpret this. And what is the correct answer here? If you look at this pie chart, anyone want to hazard answer for what this is telling us? You say 3, you say 1, you say 3. Any other what? Anyone want to weigh in on what this is? 3. Okay, so a lot of you say 3, and that is the correct answer. But there is a tendency to think this is telling you about the likelihood of groups being cremated, but it's nothing about the likelihood, it's just the distribution of cremations, okay? Like if you look at the distribution of people in poverty in America, most people who are in poverty in America are white, right? But if you look at the likelihood by race and ethnicity, minorities are much more likely. So I want them to be able to understand, what is the population, the base population you're talking about here. So getting to kind of just an overview of my program, we're really trying to teach about numeracy and quantitative reasoning, which I think we're all trying to address with using the American Community Survey, using census data, which is great, because I think that's a great strategy to use for teaching numeracy. The term first appeared in 1959 when it was presented as kind of a mirror image of literacy, numeracy being to math, what literacy is to words. And Jeffrey Crowther, who was an economist, was the first person to use the term. if we think about, and I actually have a hand up, but I'll get it for you later. The Association of American Colleges and Universities has recently put a strong emphasis on quantitative literacy and numeracy or quantitative reasoning, which they use these terms interchangeably. Some people make fine distinctions between quantitative literacy, referred to as QL, quantitative reasoning, referred to as QR, or numeracy. I've been using these terms interchangeably in my faculty development program, though if you go to my website, which I may show you in a minute, these terms, I talk about some of the distinctions people sometimes make in these terms. And for those of you who are interested, I can show you, but my website is www or just teachqr.org, okay, teachqr.com. And I have a huge wealth of resources for teaching quantitative reasoning or quantitative literacy. Again, it's teachqr.org or teachqr.com. And a lot of the information that I'm sharing is available there. You can learn more about it. It has examples of modules, everything like that. So some definitions of quantitative literacy. So this is from the Association of American Colleges and Universities, similar to what Jeffrey Crowther said in the late 1950s, that basically this is kind of quantitative reasoning is a habit of mind, competency, and comfort in working with numerical data. They have a variety of skills which encompass quantitative reasoning, and like I said, I have a handout I'll give you before I leave today that they put forward. They put forward a rubric which identifies a number of skills that are chief components of quantitative literacy. I know a lot of associations, accreditation agencies are placing strong emphasis on quantitative literacy. It's becoming seen as an essential skill for college graduates. And they have a variety of skills that they identify as being important. I'll get to those in a minute. But these are some other definitions of quantitative literacy and quantitative reasoning, which are put forward by some leaders in the quantitative literacy and quantitative reasoning movement, such as Bernie Madison or Lynn Arthur Steen, who are mathematicians. Lynn Arthur Steen actually recently passed away a few years ago. But they were kind of like the leaders, the gurus in the quantitative literacy or quantitative reasoning movement. Have written quite extensively about this. But basically, they're talking about, using numbers and math in everyday life. Or Lynn Arthur Steen says a practical, robust habit of mind, anchored in data, nourished by computers, and employed in every aspect of an alert, informed mind. And we, in our program, we just think of it as a contextualized use of numbers and data in a manner that involves critical thinking skills. I think we kind of think about quantitative reasoning or numeracy being as the math is not complex, but the thinking is. And that kind of distinguishes it from mathematics, where the numbers are very, complex and difficult. But often, what is important with quantitative reasoning is you have to have these critical thinking skills. You have to really think about the numbers, but usually the skills, the mathematical skills, are not incredibly difficult. Okay? So if you think about what quantitative reasoning is, it encompasses both math, real-world context, and critical thinking. I like this diagram. This is also from the Association of American Colleges and Universities, an article that was on their peer review in their journal of the AAC&U. So these are some examples of quantitative reasoning skills put forward in the rubric that the AAC&U put forward that I told you about, and I had the handout where they talk about interpretation, representation, calculation, application, analysis, understanding assumptions, and communicating research findings, whether orally or in writing, are important key components of quantitative literacy and quantitative reasoning. So I think that really encompasses, what are some of the key skills that we want to teach. So some evidence has, they've done some studies where they've assessed students' quantitative reasoning skills both in the United States and internationally in a variety of different countries. And some of you may have heard about the OECD report that came out several years back, because it got a lot of national media attention. And I think it got a lot of media attention in the U.S. because they found that how poorly we did vis-a-vis other OECD countries, which are basically all industrialized, developed countries. If you what they found was that when they looked at these adult skills on numeracy, they found out Japan, Finland, and Belgium scored the highest. The United States, Italy, and Spain scored the lowest. When they looked at young adults, they found out the United States was the worst, which wasn't very encouraging. When they looked at like just young adults, they found out we were. And even earlier, I know we're going back in time, but in 2003, the National Assessment of Adult Literacy found that only 13% of adults demonstrated proficiency in literacy. Now, their bar for proficiency in literacy was not very high. They were looking at things like being able to balance a checkbook or being able to calculate the tip on a bill you get. And they found that only 13% of adults were able to do all these kind of fundamental basic skills. And they found that the disadvantage, especially females and minorities, it was especially acute. By the way, the OECD report, you can also find tables broken down by race and ethnicity. And those reports also show that like African Americans and Latinos are especially disadvantaged. So that carries over to today, not surprisingly. So how are we going to address this? How are we going to respond to this quantitative literacy gap? Well, what you're all here for today, I think, is part of responding to the challenge. And I think what we need to do is we need to have faculty, and some of you are grad students who are planning to become faculty, or you're instructors, whatever, but faculty from across the disciplines treat this as a real priority that they're going to address. Lynn Arthur-Steen, I told you about him. He recently passed away, a professor of mathematics at St. Olaf College, but he said that faculty from multiple disciplines in the social sciences may be especially well positioned to take the lead. You can't see the emphasis, but I had emphasized social sciences. They'd be especially well positioned to take the lead in QR initiatives. I know there are a lot of social scientists here today. So I think that's I think the reason the social sciences are so well positioned to take the lead is we have numbers and we have context. And we want to improve our students' critical thinking skills. So it's just a really ideal context for teaching QR. And Derek Bach, the former president of Harvard, has also put forward this argument in his writing in the book he wrote, where he says that, like learning to write well or speaking a foreign language is something that you don't master in a single course. It's something that you need to infuse throughout the curriculum. And he says, it's not just the sciences or the social science, but also even the humanities. In my faculty development program, I've had faculty from African American studies, from history, from music, who have participated in my faculty development program. It's amazing how much quantitative material there is in a music course when you're teaching music. So I honestly think that's one of the ways my daughters have learned math is through music. So my program, as I told you, it was previously a previous incarnation. It was called NICHE. Now it's called NICE. It stands for Numeracy Infusion Course for Higher Education, or Numeracy Infusion for College Educators. It's pretty much an online course housed in Blackboard that teaches faculty best practices for teaching quantitative reasoning. So what they do in the course of that faculty development program is they do some of the things that you all are here today. We teach them about tools for analyzing data. We also engage them in the process of developing instructional materials. One of the big barriers is for faculty doing this is you need to really take the time to self-reflect about your courses and how you're going to achieve your goals. And taking the time to actually sit down and look at the data and think, how am I going to teach this? And taking the time, because we're so strapped for time, all faculty, wherever you are. So this is a place for faculty to get support from one another. We build it as a very collaborative kind of faculty development program. We partner faculty up. We have them get peer feedback for all their instructional materials, and we as the leaders also provide feedback to them and guidance throughout the program. We have external people who are also, Kathy, for example, in the back there is one of my external evaluators who provide feedback to faculty, and so we kind of have all these people in place to provide feedback. Faculty participate in readings, discussions, they do interactive tools, they do exercise. I'm going to show you one in a minute. And again, this is my website here, so I can show you that. But basically, they're going through the learning cycle where these are just best practices for teaching. First, they identify their learning goals, think about what they want to accomplish, and then they provide learning opportunities to develop modules and instructional materials for achieving those learning goals. Then they assess their student learning, and kind of it's a cyclical process. So as I said, these are the key tasks: their learning goals, their lesson, and then their assessment. And at the very end of our faculty development program, the last time we will, with our online program, we actually had a conference at the very end where they all came together and they presented their assessment results. So we get them all together where they present, well, this is what I've been doing, and this is what I found, and this is what worked and what didn't. And sometimes we find that with the assessment, it didn't always work as they had hoped, and they figured they have to change some things and make it better, so they learned from their assessment. And these are the kind of things that we found in our years of doing it that they really want. These are the kind of skills that faculty are focusing on at CUNY. And like I said, I've been doing now this since 2000 when I first started the QR program at Lehman. So now, it's getting close to 10 years. But these are kind of we're not really trying to achieve, inferential statistics or anything. It's really pretty much descriptive statistics. The faculty want students to understand measures of central tendency and dispersion. They want them to understand, percentages, proportions, rates and ratios, absolute and relative numbers, how to draw graphs, how to make pie charts, how to make line charts, when to make a pie chart, when to make a line chart. Do they know, when is a pie chart appropriate? When is a line chart appropriate? Some probabilities of them, in mathematics and stuff have been focusing on, probability, conversion of units for comparisons. We see a lot of that going from kilograms to pounds. They want people to be comfortable having those fluencies. And just doing some basic data analysis. Okay, so these is not fully comprehensive, it's not exhaustive, but these are the patterns that we see most often that faculty are. These are the skills our students are not graduating with. These are the ones we need to address. And these are the ones they shouldn't be graduating, not having some of these basic fluencies. So what we do in our faculty development, we teach them strategies for teaching these skills. We do a lot of teaching them how to engage students in hands-on research, have students learn by doing. We do a lot of exercises where faculty are, working with Google spreadsheets, or they're working with tools like Gapminder. I think I heard some people mentioning Gapminder, or just tools where we're just making them, hey, be familiar with what's out there, or Social Explorer. I know some of you are working with Social Explorer. We have them explore some of these tools and actually get their hands dirty, learning what's out there. So they get familiarity with these tools. We also teach them about using data that's meaningful for students' lives, because that can be important. We teach them some techniques of discovery methods, which I'll show you a tool we use really quickly. Using technology such as spreadsheets, we teach them how to use Google Spreadsheets. The faculty development program is very interactive. The same tools we want them to be using in their classroom, we use in our faculty development. So we practice what we preach, okay? We do a lot of collaborative student learning in our faculty development, because that's been shown to be an important strategy for teaching students, especially minority students, which is the students we are working with. We want them to be aware to student preparedness, especially, so we do a lot with showing them assessment data that we've undertaken with regard to student strengths and weaknesses. And we also advocate, just like the writing across curriculum, repetition and revision, that if at first you don't succeed, try again. That, throughout the course, to do a lot of exercises, small exercises, and give feedback. Sometimes not even graded feedback, with writing across curriculum, just give feedback and revise it, and let them, do it again, okay? So those are some of the important strategies that and we do a lot of reading about some of these strategies too. So, and this is just kind of, since I love my students so much, I want to give you a flavor for what it is like teaching at Lehman. This is in my class. Some pictures I just took of my students who are doing kind of an interactive exercise. One of the things, by the way, with NSF support, I actually got my first NSF grant back in 2004, I think. So it was a long time ago, and we were able to buy computers to use in the classroom. So that was the thing that NSF supported us for. We're so poor. I mean, our endowment at even college is like it's like less than 10 million. I mean, we're surrounded by like Columbia and NYU, or endowments in the billions, and we're so poor. We don't have much in the way of resources. So we got some support from NSF to give some resources to our students. Once we got the computers, the college committed to upkeeping them and replacing them after we got them. We just had to get them there. So now we have like computers that are part of laptops that we bring in the classroom that I use in my classes, and it's been great. It's really good, like working with them and things like that. So just some computing thoughts, and then I'm gonna answer questions. I want to just do a quick exercise, which takes like 10 minutes, then we can go to lunch. But I do feel that this is an ongoing process, and it really takes a lot of work. And fortunately, we've had a lot of support from NSF. And in the past, although not as much now at Lehman, I've had a lot of administrative support. We just got a new president 2 years ago, so we're kind of in a transition period, but the former president was a big fan of all of this work, and he loved it. So that really helps. So if you can have like support from the higher ups, but I do think for these initiatives to succeed, they have to be grassroots. I think with the administration saying, do this, people recoil, okay? Or especially if they say, do assessment, people recoil because they just they don't like it. But when it comes from people who are just really passionate about teaching and want to do best for their students, that's when these initiatives succeed. And I think, we've really shown, because we've been doing assessment so much, and I have a lot of assessment data from so many years of doing this work, that we've really shown, significant improvements in student learning. But we're just making baby steps. We have, there are thousands of faculty at CUNY. I've had probably over 100 faculty participate in my faculty development, but it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. We need to do a whole lot more. We need to get more faculty involved. So I'm glad you're here, because I think it's not just about Lehman or CUNY. I think it's a national kind of, at least the data I presented to you. I mean, it's a problem nationwide. And it's a problem not just at places like Lehman, it's a problem in places like Cornell and elite schools. I've also had experience teaching at Wellesley and, elite colleges. And I know these problems are not just specific to places like Lehman. They're everywhere, so we all need to address this. So I'm very glad you're here. So thank you. JP, go ahead with the exercise, or what should I do now? Should I answer questions? Okay, because I know people want to. Okay. If people have questions, like I said, I'll be around for this afternoon. But anyways, just to show like some of the things we do in our faculty development program, and some of you may be familiar with this, or you're already familiar with this. I don't have enough decks of cards for everyone, so I'm going to have people share decks of cards. But we have some decks of cards here, and I have like 4 decks. But basically what we're going to do kind of an interactive activity called the Monty Hall activity. And some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you are familiar with it. Who is familiar with it? Raise your hand if you are. Okay, so one person, okay? So maybe you can.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay, you can keep your mouth shut. Okay. Or you can be a facilitator or whatever.
Absolutely.
But basically what we're going to do is, how many of you remember the Monty Hall show? Okay, so some of you, I mean, he passed away, unfortunately, not too long ago, right? But basically, if you remember, actually, I have my video here. Let me show you this, because we're going to do it. Let me just show you here. Basically, this is an exercise where it was a game show, I think back in the 70s, right? Was it? Somewhere around there, okay? This is, by the way, my website here. This is my website, okay?
Oh, wow.
And you can see here, just so you know, it has like stuff on learning goals, on best practices, on assessment, and then there's a resource examples of a lot of the things that JP was talking about are all here, like census reporter and everything, more internet resources for data analysis, and there are examples of modules and exercise, and then there are just like resources for teaching math to our statistical skill. It's just a kind of wide variety of resources. But anyway. I did. Although my upkeep in recent years, I've been so busy that um, uh, that I haven't actually been updating it, because I always try and give like the, resources and books and everything. And unfortunately, I haven't been updating it as much as I would like to. But anyways, okay, so this is a video about Monty Hall. This is what you all are going to do. You're going to actually do a Monty Hall exercise. And kind of, sometimes this tactile learning, I call it like tactile teaching, where you're actually using your hands and moving things and touching things. I think when Kathy was talking about dropping, making the kind of sound in the BBs in the bucket, that's kind of like this tactile, which I think is also really important for teaching skills and learning. So we're going to do kind of a tactile thing where we actually, engage in the process of learning, where basically what you're going to do is you're going to pick a deck of, you're going to get together 3 cards, okay? But one of the cards will be a face card. And one of you is going to be the dealer, and one of you is going to be the contestant. So we're going to do exactly what is going to be described here, but instead of using doors, you're going to use cards. So you're going to have 3 cards, and one of you is going to be the host, Monty, and one of you is going to be the contestant, okay? So what you're going to do, the dealer is going to take 3 cards, okay? One is going to be a face card. That's going to be the prize, okay? And 2 of them are going to be non-face cards. They're going to be like the goats or whatever from the Monty Hall show, okay? And you shuffle the cards, okay? And one of them is your winning prize card. And what you're going to do is you're going to know where the prize is, okay? And you're going to pick a card, okay? Pick a card. Okay, you pick this card, and then I'm going to say, do you want to stay? I'm going to show you this card, which you know is a losing card. I'm going to say, always I'm going to show you a losing card. I'm going to say, do you want to stay or do you want to switch? Your choice. I'm always going to show her a losing card. Stay. And you're going to stay. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to mark down that you stayed. Okay, so mark down that you stayed. And what happens when you stayed? You lost. So the winning card, you would have been better if you had switched, but you stayed. Okay, so you're going to do that, and you're going to do it half the time you're going to stay and half the time you're going to switch, and you're going to record whether she wins when she stays or she switches. Do it like 5 times staying and 5 times switching, okay? So let me show you basically this description of what it is. Is the sound going to work, JP, for me?
Right now, right?
Yeah, sure. Right here. Bring up all the way. There we go. Oh.
Can you hear that?
You have no way of knowing which door conceals which item, and
whichever door you will receive the asked to pick it. But before it is opened one of the other two doors. The host knows where the car is. Always open. Then ask whether you'd like to swap your chosen door for the one. The question is, should you stick with your original choice? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it.
This deck goes with that, so if someone wants to take home a whole deck. Okay. And this is. You understand what to do? Okay, so basically, always. Okay, yes. Okay. Switch. And always make sure that the person who is dealing the cards always. I'm going to give the other half of the deck to, or I'll give 3 cards to team in the back. Okay, so. Would you like to stay or So anyway, if we get to know, we can talk about it.
Do you have any other videos? I figured it out.
Oh, that was it. Sorry. Sorry, card. To be clear, two-thirds chance of winning. Would you like to stay? Yes. Is it? Something to know.
Some more goat than I am.
Single game strategy. Like strategy.
Dude, girl.
No, that's my card. So you gotta flip one of these that's not a goat. Or that is. Yeah, that's a goat. I will switch.
Well, you're getting it. I'm saying.
Two of each.
I will switch.
Oh, okay.
We're all doing it.
No.
Did you want to do the first part?
I will switch.
Halfway.
The week John has made. I will stay. And see if by like if I did it, you would
So great. Excellent. Oh, I love this. Which is
this tiny card. I will switch my tiny card.
one.
I switched mine. Well, that's everybody's like really loyal to their original pick. You're not rational, and it's statistically your original pick. You have a 1 in 3 chance of winning. For switching, you have a 1 in 2 chance of winning. But I don't fundamentally, like I don't believe it.
No, and I don't think it accounts for the fact that.
Well, what is it?
I call it theoretically good news, John.
Yeah. Because when Peter did it, it like
I chose to, between us, we switched and stayed an equal amount of times.
Yeah.
We stayed, we had 1 win. Oh, yeah. I can always choose to switch. I suppose that's a mathematics principle that is.
So tell me about your friends. They want to be
They want to be COO. Just the CEO wasn't one of the options I gave them. I thought Jenny was in by David Solomon.
No.
Yeah, they're all.
Oh, this is one of us.
Yeah, one of the things that did not come up in we kind of captured in this I did summer term health administration for 5. Is the idea that how to get there. Yeah, it sounds like a cool job. Okay, what jobs do you need now? Those days had quick things that were like mid-level and upper level, and so it wasn't.
Right. But it's a subject.
I ended up just not thinking that health administrator was a
Oh,
job.
maybe you don't believe there is one.
I think the way it was presented to me.
Yeah, no, I. Is there really a race?
It's like, I thought epidemiologists would make more money if they were taking a master's.
Yeah, maybe there is.
Oh, I thought so. That's not paying money for it. That's like less.
I made a management classes. I basically kept all. Right. I always thought and me.
Next time. Everyone ready? Okay.
No.
Well, I'll start with the ones who are done, okay? So you guys finished?
Yeah.
So when you switched, how many times did you win? Won once with switching. And you lost 4 times then?
Yeah.
And when you stayed, how many times did you win? 1?
Yeah.
And you lost 4 times. Okay. Not gonna,
You put it in 2 instead of 4.
oh, sorry, 4. Okay?
I lost all 5 times, so I always had a better record. I just lost regardless of whether I stayed or switched.
Okay. So, okay, what's another? You finished up here, right?
Yes.
How many times did you win when you switched?
When we switched, we won 3 times.
Okay.
When we stayed, we won 2 times.
I had the same.
Okay, the same thing, 3 and 2 and 2 and 3?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we have 2 more groups, right? Okay, I'm gonna, are you guys
How do you say that?
done? Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll just take what you have. If you're not done, we'll just take what you have and go ahead. How many times did you,
Switched, we won 5 times, stayed, we won once,
okay, and this is out of 5 times,
out
right?
of 10.
10 altogether, but
10
5 each
altogether.
time. Okay, 1 and 4. Okay.
No, 5 and 1.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Okay. Number of times switching. You're all set, Shay?
Yeah.
Okay. When you switch, how many times did you win? Pardon? Yeah. How many times did you win when you switched? You won once when you switched. So you lost 4 times when you switched, and when you stayed, how many times did you win? Pardon? 6.
Out of 5 times.
No, that was out of the 10.
Okay, wait a second. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
both did a 5.
You did both 5 times?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you switched, you did it 5 times. So you won 1 time and lost 4 times? When you switched? I'm sorry? I can't hear you.
Switching, how many times did you win? Okay, out of 5 times you stayed. Out of 10.
Okay, out of staying, 5 times staying, you won 1 time? Okay. Why don't we'll take a look at the data we have so far and talk about it, and then we'll add yours when you want. But anyways, this is what we see so far. I have it set up. What these are what we the data we've gathered so far. So you can see when people stayed, their odds of winning were about 28%. For our little experiment in the class when they switched, or in our faculty program here in my class, when they switched, won 68%. Okay. So is it better to stay or switch? Switch. Okay. So this is like a lot of times people come into this program or this problem thinking, it doesn't matter, but of course it does matter. It matters significantly that it's better to switch. So this is we do this exercise in our faculty development program. I mean, it's an exercise about probability. It's really about Bayes' theorem and everything, but it's, you know, it's conditional probability. But what we do in our faculty development program, we want to showcase this as just an example of experiential learning, an example of discovery learning, where you kind of have a hypothesis and then you discover the answer through the process of doing it. We like this also because it teaches, it's about collaborative learning. You can pull the data sets from different groups of students. It also teaches about technology and Google spreadsheets. So there's just a lot of you can do with an exercise like this. And if you're teaching online, this is something you can definitely do in the online environment, which is our faculty development program. So I just wanted to showcase this as an example of how we're advocating people teach quantitative reasoning skills, that you kind of engage students and you do it in a way that gets students kind of interested and excited about learning, and it really gets them, they remember, you know, exercise like this. Does anyone have any questions why it's better to switch than to stay, how it changes the probability? Because it's not intuitive, and there was actually a big discussion in the newspaper about this, and, you know, Marilyn, you know, the genius woman who writes that column in the newspaper, she had written about, you know, how it's better to switch and everything. And this is actually true with the Monty Hall show, because Monty Hall used to ask people whether they wanted to stay or switch, and a lot of people would just say, oh, I want to stay. But actually, if they had switched, they would have increased their odds to winning to 2/3, because then in 2/3 of the cases, they're going to be forced into, you know, assuming it's random, you know, it's randomly distributed, 2/3 of the time they're going to win if you keep this repetition. So anyways, and of course, if you're just sticking with your gut, then, you know, because you have to remember the person is not just randomly picking another card, they're strategically showing you the losing card and asking you if you want to pitch. They know it's there. So so 2/3 of the time, when they're showing you the wrong card, they're going to force you into the correct answer. Because assumingly 1/3 of the time randomly you pick the right answer, and 2/3 of the time randomly you pick the wrong answer. So those 2/3 of the time when you switch, you're going to be forced into the right answer when they show you the wrong card, right? So that's why it's better to switch. You can do this all statistically too, but that's kind of the easy. So anyways, so thank you so much. If people have questions about my faculty development program or how we approach and everything, I welcome questions. And like I said, I'm happy to share material. So that said, I guess it's time for lunch, right? You know,